Welcome to Business Line's State of the Economy podcast, where you'll find insight, analysis, and the story behind the numbers.
Hello and welcome to BL State of the Economy podcast as part of our year-ender on social security for gig workers. We have today with us Rishi Agrawal, CEO and co-founder TeamLease Regtech. And we have a very interesting topic to discuss with Mr. Rishi, which is on social security for gig workers. So thank you, Mr. Rishi, for joining this Business Line podcast. And the podcast will be as part of our year-ender series for 2024.
Well, Srivats, thank you so much for having me over. Really excited about our discussion today.
Great. So help me understand, what exactly has the government done for social security for gig workers, especially in 2024?
Sure. So, workers have been in news for the last few years. According to an estimation by NITI in its report titled India's Booming Gig and Platform Economy, this was published in the year 2022, I think in the June month. The number of gig workers and the platform workers in India were projected at around 7.7 million in the year 2021. However, there was also a forecast that in the current decade, around year 2029, 2030, the number is expected to rise to close to 24 million gig workers. The government has implemented several initiatives to provide social security. Over the years, these changes have been brought in. Key measures include Code on Social Security 2020, which formally recognizes gig and platform workers. It provides provisions for their welfare, including life and disability insurance, health benefits, and old age protection. This marks the first legislative acknowledgement that gig workers need some of these rights at the national level. In addition, the Shram portal, which was launched in 2021, is designed as a comprehensive database for all the unorganized workers, which includes the gig workers as well. Workers can register for a UAN, which is the Universal Account Number, through this platform. It allows them to access multiple government schemes, which includes Pradhan Mantri Shram Yogi Manadhan, which is PMSYM, for old age pension schemes and other welfare programs. Some states have also taken progressive steps. Rajasthan passed the Platform Gig Workers Registration and Welfare Act of 2023, establishing a welfare board funded by aggregator contributions. Karnataka has also followed suit with a bill focusing on simple contract terms, monitoring mechanisms, and worker-friendly provisions. Despite all of these measures, effective implementation, aggregator compliance remains critical challenges in the economy so far. The central government continues to push for broader participation from aggregators to strengthen protection, emphasizing sectors such as ride sharing, food delivery, logistics, and so on and so forth. So that's really a high level view of what has been done so far.
Great. Thank you for that. But help me compare how things are moved in other jurisdictions like US, China, or even Southeast Asia as regards social security for gig workers. Have we stolen a march over them?
Not really. We haven't stolen a march over any one of these. And by the way, gig workers is a topic of discussion in many of these countries. There are still disagreements about whether gig workers should be classified as employees or independent contractors. Both of them have their own pros and cons. US approach to gig workers is still dispersed among various states. Different states have different approaches to dealing with gig workers. For example, California has an AB5 law which aims to provide benefits, including minimum wages, employment insurance, health coverage, which requires gig workers to be considered employees until their employers can demonstrate otherwise. Proposition 22, a California law, lets ride-hailing companies classify workers as independent contractors instead of employees. Among other regulations, partially reversing AB5 enabling ride-hailing services to exempt their drivers for while providing only minimum perks. Gig workers were temporarily included in the pandemic unemployment assistance program during the COVID-19, highlighting the need for longer term solutions. Although there is no employer contribution, gig workers can acquire insurance through marketplaces created by what is called as the Affordable Care Act, ACA, which aims to increase access to affordable health schemes. States like California and Oregon have also implemented retirement saving programs like Cal Savers to help gig workers and contract workers secure their financial future. This is something that is there in the US, couple of states. However, in China, the number of gig workers are over 200 million. Remember, we were talking about 20 to 30 million workers in India. In China, this number is well over 200 million. They are engaged in various kinds of gig work across various industries. These include ride sharing, food delivery, e-commerce, and online tutoring. In 2021, China's employment policy introduced specific regulations for gig economy. It emphasized fair treatment, fair employment practices, and collaboration amongst various government bodies, trade unions, including judiciary. In addition to encouraging safety with smart kiosks, helmets, authorities released guidelines to protect food delivery workers, guaranteeing minimum salaries, lenient delivery deadlines, and participation in various insurance programs. In addition, the Ministry of Human Resources released three new guidelines in March 2024, stipulating how operators of delivery, ride hailing, transport, and other household service platforms should ensure that workers' salary match the local minimum wages and provide them with time off. However, the effective implementation is still a challenge, despite the efforts and calls for constant attention to detail and supervision is there. Southeast Asian nations, some of them include Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand. They are also going through similar exercises. It's a mix of government-led initiatives, platform-driven contributions, which enhance the gig worker security. These include tripartite work group for platform workers in Singapore, providing housing and retirement contribution through Central Provident Fund, including policies that prioritize medical benefits, work injury compensation, amongst others. There are laws like Freelance Protection Act guarantee contracts, on-time payments, insurance access, social security systems in Philippines. They permit gig and freelance workers to make voluntary contributions. But overall, initiatives that include gig workers into official and social ecosystems, they continue to evolve with emphasis on health and accident insurance in Vietnam and Thailand. These governments are integrating gig workers into existing social security frameworks with voluntary contributions and platform partnerships. So, as you can see, whether it is Western countries or Southeast Asian economies, they have taken different approaches to making provisions for gig workers. The numbers are different in different countries, and these regulations are also at different levels of evolution. But there is a focus across the board on the benefits for gig workers.
Okay, thank you for that. So, India, after the enactment of the labor code and as it gets implemented, what specific steps do you think the labor ministry has taken towards social security for our gig workers?
So that's an interesting question, Srivatsa. The Labour Ministry is developing a social security policy and hopes to implement by February next year. It expects to provide health insurance, pension benefits to workers such as platform delivery staff and ride-hailing drivers. A module has also been launched on the eShram portal to facilitate aggregators, enrollment of platform workers. These are actually done to establish an interim welfare framework before implementation of the labor codes, which are yet to be enforced. So while they passed the legislative litmus test in 2019 and 2020, but they have still not been implemented across the states. Some of these include health insurance and pension, where the government is working on introducing health insurance and pension schemes for gig workers so that they can receive basic social security benefits. It also includes unique identity numbers so that it can streamline the distribution of various benefits the government may introduce a unique identity for gig workers so that it can allow them to access social security schemes very easily. In addition, there's an extension of enhanced life insurance so that the life insurance benefits can be extended to crores of members of EPFO, which will cover them up to 7 lakh rupees as well. So these are things that are work in progress, and we hope to see some real action on them sometime early next year.
Okay. So, what possible changes do you think will the implementation of labor codes have on gig workers?
See, I think labor codes for the first time in the country recognize that unorganized workers, gig workers, home based workers, part time workers, they are actually a part of the workforce and they deserve social security benefits and so on and so forth. So if you look at the country's labor force, only 9 to 10% of the labor force is organized. The remaining close to 90% of the labor force falls into the unorganized segment. Now, anybody which is in the organized segment, or they already have access to some of these social security benefits, like insurances and health insurances and retirement benefits and pension schemes and so on and so forth. And anybody in the unorganized segment traditionally have been bereft of some of these benefits. Now, if you look at some of the states, including Karnataka and Rajasthan in India, some work has already been carried out. In Karnataka, they've introduced a cess of 1 to 2%, which was introduced on transactions that were carried out through aggregator platforms like ride sharing apps, food delivery platforms, e-commerce marketplaces, and so on. The objective was that the collected funds are expected to support the social security, healthcare, and other welfare initiatives of gig workers. Right? Karnataka also introduced something platform-based gig workers social security and welfare bill of 2024. This is for the welfare of the gig workers. The Labor Ministry announced several initiatives towards enhancing social security for gig workers, including a social security policy that provides the gig workers with health insurance and pension benefits. Similarly, if you look at Rajasthan, it has also introduced a Rajasthan platform-based gig workers Registration and Welfare Act in 2023. It defines a gig worker as someone who works outside of a traditional employer-employee relationship and earns a specific rate of payment through a contract. So some of these initiatives have been picked up at various state levels. We are yet to see some significant benefits being offered, but I think these are all in early stages, and I hope to see a lot more progress as this marketplace evolves and some of these regulatory models also get a little more widespread coverage across states.
Okay, so as we are having this conversation at the end of the year, so what is your take that will 2025 be a year where there will be several sort of benefits flowing the way of gig workers in terms of social security? Is that how you see the next year?
So I won't hold my breath on 2025, Srivatsa, but the key is the successful implementation of the Code on Social Security 2020, which was legislated as a part of the codification process back in year 2020, where the rules also were written by various states, but it is yet to become fully live. So that is where introduction of various benefits like health insurance, pension, maternity protections, while requiring aggregators to contribute to a welfare fund came in. It aimed to streamline access to benefits through digital platforms like eShram portal, provide standardization of coverage across states, ensuring equitable coverage and so on. By formalizing these protections, the labor codes could potentially reduce financial vulnerabilities, including holding platforms accountable, creating a more inclusive and sustainable social security system for these workers and so on. The codes are supposed to replace the existing laws, which include the Employees Provident Fund Act of 1952 and the Employees State Insurance Act of 1948, and extending such benefits of provident fund insurance and maternity to the larger segment of the workforce. As I mentioned, only 9 to 10% is covered today.
Sorry.
Please go ahead.
What I was curious to know was that if these benefits which are available for somebody who's in the organized sector gets extended to the gig workers, Will they also be categorized as employees under the code?
So that is where it is, right? I mean, once you categorize them as employees, a lot of benefits which are available in terms of flexibility of the workforce for a gig worker simply goes away, right? I mean, so there is a very delicate difference between what a regular employee and employee-employer relationship is and what a gig worker relationship is. I mean, if you look at a gig worker, it offers a lot of flexibility with respect to the work arrangement. You don't necessarily have one employer in many cases. You can work at your convenience. You may not want to work a full shift. You can work at will. You can work basis the number of items you deliver, or I mean the quantum of work that you do, or the quantum of time that you dedicate. All of those benefits are available to a gig work arrangement, which are traditionally missing in a typical employee-employer relationship. So that is where it's a double-edged sword. While the fixed work arrangements have more defined benefits program, the gig work has more flexible programs. So I think one has to draw that delicate line between the two and make sure that we can extend some of these benefits to the gig workforce without creating a burden for one organization as such. And I think that is where these new work models are evolving and creating a larger ecosystem for these benefits.
So the code as it stands today does define gig worker. Am I right?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And there is no mention of a employer-employee arrangement for them.
No. Now, imagine if you were a delivery boy and if you're delivering food via multiple food delivery applications, right? You could be delivering right now for one app, and in 10 minutes, you get another order for another app. Whose employee are you?
Absolutely.
Right?
Correct.
Those are all the things which bring a lot more flexibility in their work arrangements. If somebody does not want to work 8 days, 10 days because they want to go back to their village and take care of some personal assignments, in the traditional work arrangements, there may be constraints around how many days off they can take and when they can take, and permissions are required from their employer. Gig workers don't have to necessarily do that. Once they put their app off, they can do whatever they want, and they're not accountable to anybody from that perspective. So it brings in a lot of flexibility. It offers an ability to work with multiple companies, right? You don't necessarily need to be working with just one company. There are multiple companies that you can work with. You can work at will. You can work on your time convenience. There are a lot of gig workers who pursue higher education during certain hours of the day, and then they fund their education via gig work and so on. So all of these are variety of flexibilities that gig work brings to the workforce. We don't want to constrain it with traditional working models without compromising the social security benefits that should get extended to them.
So net gig workers are expected to be a better lot in 2025. As regards social security.
Yes, I think some of these models are evolving. As I told you, there are items that have been picked up by a variety of states in the western part of the world, which is in the United States. We have seen some new models come up in the Southeast Asian region as well, and so on. So I think we need to continue to go down this path, think through, variety of models, adapt them in the Indian context, see what are specific Indian opportunities and challenges, and keep moving in this direction. I think the key here is to make gig work an important aspect of our workforce, give them all the health schemes, the pension benefits, the life insurances, and so on and so forth, so that they can formally contribute to the workforce in more productive ways.
Great. So thank you, Mr. Rishi, for all your perspective and insights on gig workers and the social security schemes that are in the works for them. Thank you so much for joining the BL podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Srivats, for having me here. Really excited about our conversation today.